I don't know much about shapeshifters. I heard it's rooted in Haitian mythology, but I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, shapeshifters are real. Mr. Elimon made that painfully obvious. It wasn't a secret in his village. Almost everyone knew he was not a nice man and dabbled in disturbing rituals. Whatever he was doing behind closed doors was outwardly evident. He had one of the biggest and fanciest houses on the street. He had it painted white, and in the middle of the day, when the sunlight hit that house just right, it was as if it was glowing. The monstrosity of a house fit his personality perfectly. He was a tall and hefty man. His belly jutted out in front of him. He cloaked his frame in white. He wore white pants, a white dress shirt, and a white hat. Even in the heat of the day, he wore white. Yet that fatso hardly ever broke a sweat. When people passed by his house, they didn't say much until they were several feet away. The villagers tried their best to keep their interactions with him to a minimum, because it didn't take much to set him off. The domestics he hired didn't last any longer than 3 to 4 months. The young men who tended to his farm couldn't last longer than a year, because he ruled with an iron fist. He wanted everything perfect, and he disliked children. The only interaction he wanted from them was good morning and good night. Most people wondered how he was able to marry a woman and produce a son. He was just too harsh of a man. After decades of marriage, his wife left him. No one was surprised. She moved to the United States and lived a peaceful life according to her family members. The only person he ever showed genuine affection towards was his only son. Overall, people only dealt with Mr. Elima when it was absolutely necessary. Since he was a successful businessman, no one wanted to deal with him. Believe me, he didn't feel left out when he wasn't invited to parties or functions. That was fine with him.
Bye-bye, moun regle anye pou mwen. I don't care about these people,
he scoffed. Bernardo was set to leave the island of Haiti after his final exams. He was headed to New York City, and he was excited. It was always customary to never let anyone know you were leaving the island, or any Caribbean island for that matter, since it was deemed bad luck. Many people have a horrible story about someone set to travel abroad and were met with some tragic demise or unforeseen accident that either delayed their travel plans or ended in a tragic death. To be candid, some of these unfortunate occurrences were not accidental, but rather intentional. Bernardo's parents cautioned him to tell no one he was leaving. They told him they would inform people once his flight took off. This practice continues even to this day. His sole responsibility was to concentrate on his final exams. Bernardo and his classmates often went to Professor Gilbert's house to study before school. The professor offered his students a chance to meet with him in the early morning to go over what may be on the final exams. He welcomed them to his residence, where a large blackboard was situated on the front porch. Routinely, Bernardo woke up at 5 a.m., grabbed his school bag, rode his bike for 3 miles, where the professor frequently enjoyed his morning coffee, waiting for students to arrive. Life in the Caribbean is serene, and this was going to be one of the aspects of Haiti Bernardo would sorely miss. Professor Gilbert's home was merely 6 or 7 houses down from Mr. Elema's house. Deliberately, Bernardo always took the longer route to his professor's place, as he harbored a sincere fear of Mr. Elema. In his opinion, there was something disturbing about that man, and he wanted to avoid riding by his home. He, like everyone else, had heard frightening tales regarding the true nature of Mr. Elema. And before long, Bernardo was going to discover just how dangerous Mr. Elema was. Once more, Caribbean living is remarkably peaceful. And due to the limited access to electricity in some regions, when there was a full moon, it could easily be mistaken for daylight. It's a beautiful sight to see, but can spell trouble for a lone traveler, as ominous things can happen at night. This night, something crazy was going to happen to Bernardo. He was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling marked by water stains in his bedroom. His mind was filled with aspirations for a successful college career, and how he would show his gratitude to his parents because they sacrificed so much for him to travel, which made it hard for him to fall asleep. Bernardo finally dozed off. He found himself dreaming. Suddenly, he was awakened. He could see daylight shining through the crack of the door. Making sure not to wake his parents, he quietly got out of bed, got dressed, grabbed his book bag, and tiptoed to the back of the house, retrieved his bike, and walked out of the front gate. Initially, he failed to notice it, but as he hopped on his bicycle, he became aware of an eerie stillness that surrounded him. His thoughts were quickly consumed with the anticipation of getting to Professor Gilbert's home to engage in his studies. The young man was enthusiastic about his future pursuits. Bernardo began to visualize the hour-long drive he would make to the Toussaint Louverture International Airport. He was familiar with the airport and never went inside, but this time he was going inside to board a plane and embark on a new chapter of his life. Bernardo was so engrossed in his thoughts, he did not notice 2 magnificent horses standing approximately 80 feet away from him. The sight of the horses startled him. Although he had seen horses before, nothing compared to the beauty of these 2 creatures. They were larger than any horses he'd ever seen in his life. He slowed down, staring at them, mesmerized by their size. Kote bel cheval sa yo soti? Kote net yo? Where did these beautiful horses come from? Where's their owner? He pondered to himself. As he rode by them, the horses followed him with their eyes. They looked like statues beneath a large mango tree. A dreadful sensation overcame him when he realized that what he believed was daylight was actually the moon. Comment quitter la lune tromper là? How did I allow the moon to mislead me? Annoyed with his blunder, his mind raced as he tried to decide. Sa m'dwe fè la, al la kay mwen, ou bien al ka professeur? Should I go home, or should I just go to the professor's house? It wasn't long before he could hear the soft sound of horses trotting behind him. He strained to turn his head around and quickly realized that the horses were trailing him. His heart sank. He felt a tingling sensation on his skin, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He heard an internal gentle voice urging him to pedal faster. He opted to cycle out of the saddle to get away from them. But to his horror, he realized that they too were gaining speed. The situation became urgent as he envisioned being stomped to death by these two horses. Papa, bon Dieu, please help me, he prayed under his breath. He was cycling at maximum speed, and the two white horses were rapidly approaching him. Bernardo was convinced that he was about to meet his end. His life flashed before his eyes. No traveling abroad, no college, his parents inconsolable, and his coffin being lowered into the ground. But a ray of hope sparked when he saw his professor's house in the distance. "Oh, Monsieur Jésus, thank you, Jesus," he said out loud. Using whatever strength he had left, he began to shout, "Professeur Gilbert, ouvrez la porte pour moi! Professor Gilbert, open the door!" Luckily, fate was playing a role. Professor Gilbert was having trouble falling asleep. Since he was busy grading papers, he brewed a small cup of coffee and opted to open the door to his home, hoping to catch a light breeze. He stepped out onto the porch, looking out at the dirt road. The professor was about to lift the coffee cup to his lips when his solitude was interrupted by the sound of tremendous galloping and a familiar voice screaming his name. Professor Gilbert was filled with apprehension as he stepped back into the house. His heart was racing. Even though the voice that called out to him was oddly familiar, he was not prepared to take any risks, because shapeshifters are great at imitating voices, and they can morph into anything they want. He forcefully slammed the door shut and pressed his ear against it. The sound of the galloping intensified. The house shook. But that voice could still be heard shouting, "Professeur Gilbert, c'est Bernardo, ouvrez porte pour moi!" The professor burst through the door to witness two horses in hot pursuit of his student. The front gate stood 6 feet high, and in one fluid motion, Bernardo dismounted his bicycle, lifted it with both hands, and hurled it over the gate. The professor's eyes widened in astonishment as Bernardo climbed over the gate and fell to the ground within the compound. He was scrambling frantically towards his teacher. The professor dashed a few feet out of the door and pulled the terrified young man into the house. They both fell to the floor, forcefully shutting the door once more. They listened in utter terror as the horses thundered just outside the gate, racing back and forth. The professor looked at Bernardo asking, "Ça que passe là? What the hell is going on? What happened?" The moon deceived me. The moon deceived me. I thought it was daytime. I was coming to you to study when those two horses began hunting me. But vous sauvez, you saved me. The teacher was kind enough to prepare a comfortable pallet on the floor for his student to sleep. They spent the rest of the night listening to the horses trotting back and forth. Bernardo couldn't recall when he fell asleep, but when he opened his eyes, he was relieved to find that the sun was shining. He quickly got up and informed his teacher that he was going home. He thought about whether he should take the day off. The sun was out and he could see people in the street, but the echoes of the night before still lingered in his mind. His bicycle sustained some damage after it crashed to the ground, prompting him to choose to walk home. He wondered how he was going to explain this bizarre encounter to his parents. Bernardo was so absorbed in his thoughts that he failed to notice he was walking past Mr. Elema's residence. He was too fatigued to turn back now and felt indifferent. He observed the grumpy old man, dressed in his usual white, sitting on the porch, enjoying his coffee. Bernardo found himself in a dilemma. He didn't want to greet this sinister man, but didn't want to be rude either. He wanted to prevent any animosity from developing between this lunatic and his parents. I mean, that's how fickle that man was. If Bernardo didn't greet him, Mr. Elema would then complain to his parents and tell them that they raised an impolite young man. After clearing his throat, he timidly said, "Bonjour, toi, Elema." "Good morning, Mr. Elema." The old man lowered his coffee cup and smiled, saying, "It is a good morning, especially for you. Monkey prend hier soir. I almost caught you last night." The ground seemed to sway beneath Bernardo's feet. He struggled to remain calm and unaffected. Bernardo just pretended not to hear what the old man just said. His stomach tightened. His throat felt constricted. His mouth felt dry, and a thin layer of sweat coated his brow. Bernardo kept walking as he managed to say in a voice that was barely audible, "Passez un bon journée with Elema. Have a good day, Mr. Elema." Bernardo thought to himself, everything people said about Mr. Elema is true. He's a wicked person who practices magic and has the power to shapeshift. This son of perdition transformed into 2 white horses, attempting to crush him into dust. He couldn't wait to tell his parents what happened to him. Once he got home, he told them he wasn't feeling very well. He had a fever and took to his bed for several days. He told them everything. Professor Gilbert was gracious enough to pass this young man. Not that he ever doubted that he wouldn't graduate. He was an intelligent student, and he'd been through enough. After Bernardo got well, he refused to wander too far from his home. His parents were so concerned for him, they had to change his itinerary to leave the island sooner rather than later. It took Bernardo nearly 5 years to muster up the courage to visit his homeland. It felt safe now. Mr. Elema was dead, and that was fine with him. But to this day, the sound of horses trotting fills him with dread.